This is Lesson 7 in our study of Proverbs 31, and I'm glad you've joined us for another look into Moxie's wardrobe and to see what it is made up of. She gives us insight on what it takes to become an example of a woman who is a force of character, determination, courage, and nerve. And this lesson, one descriptive, jumps out at the page to me, and that is this: she is surpassed by none. So tell me, how are you doing with resting? Resting is when we stop all the voices, we turn off the chaos, we quiet ourselves and listen. It doesn't come natural. You have to practice it, but it is essential. It is a very important part of a successful life. And how is your shipbuilding skills coming along? Did you go into some new ports this past week? Did you find some new avenues to go down? And did you have an adventure? Did you try a new restaurant or a new recipe? Maybe you added a new item to your wardrobe. Is there someone in your own life saying, maybe you should try something different? And did our old buddy fear pop up, tapping you on the shoulder, whispering in your ear, you can't do that, you're going to look silly, they're not going to understand, they're not going to approve? We have a great weapon against fear now, and it is simply love. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out all fear. Fear and love are opposites. If love fills our life, there is no place for fear. And the simplest way to get rid of the fears we have is to stay connected to perfect love, which only comes from God. And did you allow something to change? Did you allow change to happen, even if it was the slightest bit? That moment when you wanted to scream and yell and hold on tightly and say, no, we can't change. Did you let it? Did you let it go? You will never have adventures if you don't allow yourself to appreciate and embrace and enjoy when things change. And did you loosen your grip just a little bit on control? Let it go. Pry those knuckles open and begin to experience life rather than trying to control it. Be adventurous. Adventurous women are fun. They are energizing. They are interesting. And some adventures find us, like relocating or job changes, life changes. We don't need to approach those any longer with dread, but instead we can look through our new adventurous eyes and explore all that lays ahead of us. And that takes us to the beginning of our 7th lesson: early to bed, early to rise. And the verse says this: she rises when it is still night. Now, I am an early riser. I always have been, and I think I'll always be. And when my grandkids are visiting, they know I'll get up with them no matter how early it is. And for one of them, that can be 4:45 in the morning. I think it's a waste of time laying in bed, waiting for other people to wake up. Have you ever been to the grocery store just before the sun comes up? It's the best time of the day. The floor is filled with employees. They're drinking coffee, they're fixing the produce, they're restocking the shelves, and they're talking to each other. And they're talking to you. It's a friendly, energized environment. There are no unhappy children or hurried shoppers that we have to dodge. And the checkout person is delighted to see you, sincerely interested in the day ahead, and sends you off with a smile. Now, there are some important time frames during the night. The first one is from 12 to 2, and I have read that this is actually somewhat of a healing time. This is when our body regenerates, when it re-energizes, when it repairs cells, when it starts building up energy. It's making things new. Now, I know a lot of people don't fall asleep until after 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'd like to challenge you, if you are one of them, to take 2 weeks, and during the 12 to 2 time frame, turn off the TV, don't play video games. This isn't work time. This isn't paying bills or looking at Facebook or responding to emails. Be in a state of restfulness and see if something isn't different in your day. Then there is another time, and that is at 4 o'clock. And 4 is to create. You'll hear an awful lot of authors and writers talk about being at their computer in those early morning hours from 4 to 5, and that the creativity just flows. There's an energy there that happens in those early morning hours. I find it in my own life. I love being up at 4 o'clock and sitting at the computer and writing. The time just flies by. It is a very creative time. But resting is resting, and in my old age, waking up in the middle of the night happens a bit more frequently. But here are a few tricks that I've learned from other people. First of all, don't allow being awake to make you anxious or mad. Don't be watching the clock, watching every minute pass, and don't have the conversations in your head that say, I only have 2 hours left. If I don't get to sleep, tomorrow's going to be a disaster. I'm not going to be ready. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be dragging, because you are setting yourself up for a total failure of a day. Instead, allow that time to still be resting. You may not be asleep, but you can relax every muscle in your body. You can quiet the noises and voices in your head. You can be still, you can be peaceful, and you will have some of the benefits of sleeping. I had a friend tell me that when she wakes up, she focuses on one spot on the ceiling and forces her eyes to stay wide open. And it's kind of like watching a movie when you're just so drowsy and you're starting to doze off, and you keep opening your eyes and you open them wider and wider, and then all of a sudden you wake up and the credits are playing. This does the same thing. But I also think she is so focused on that one spot and keeping her eyes open that her mind isn't racing, her body isn't racing. She still remains relaxed, and she falls asleep quickly. And I had another friend tell me that he believes that when those times in the middle of the night when we wake up and we're fearful, our minds are racing, that those are actually somewhat of an attack from the evil forces in our world. So what he decided to do was every time that happened, he started singing his favorite worship song. And he said, after the first couple nights, I realized that I was falling back to sleep a little faster and a little faster and a little faster until suddenly I wasn't even waking up anymore. So one of two things could have been going on. If it were the evil forces within our world, he had drawn a line in the sand and said, I'm not buying it. I want you to know that if I'm going to wake up filled with fear and anxiety and doubt, then it's going to force me to sing praises to my God. The other thing that was going on was he was forcing himself to stay in a very peaceful and restful state, making it so much easier to fall back to sleep. I've begun to embrace the times that I wake up in the middle of the night. I will only lay in bed for about 10 minutes waiting to go back to sleep. And then I get up, I make myself something to drink, and I sit down at the computer and I write. I refuse to do work in the middle of the night. I don't look at Facebook or send emails. But I will be creative, and it's wonderful. It's amazing. Sometimes I'm still there when the sun comes up, and I go about my day as if I had 10 hours of sleep. And other times my eyes start to get heavy and I turn off the light, I crawl back in bed, and I have the most wonderful sleep possible. So how do we get our days working so that we can rise early? Because if you rise early, it usually means you need to go to bed a little bit earlier, which means the evening needs to run a little smoother, which means the afternoon needs to be, and it just goes in a cycle. Well, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, what word really works here? What word describes the kind of life that Moxy lives? And the first word that came to mind was controlled. However, we can't control our days. We can't control our life. And it's because of something I call the X factor. And if you recall in your early math classes, when the x is part of an equation, it's also part of the solution. So 2 plus 2x equals 4x. Now we have no idea what x means, but x is always there. And in our life, x is people. It's schedules, it's doctor's office, it's traffic. It's the unexpected phone call. It's the unexpected need of a child or a coworker. It is those things that we can't control, but they're going to show up throughout our day, throughout our week, and they're going to mess up our life and our schedule. So the other thing that I thought was disciplined life. That sounded pretty good until I said it enough times where I thought, I wonder if in a disciplined life, when you're not disciplined, if it doesn't make me think that I'm going to be punished somehow. And then this word popped in, an ordered life. And I fell in love with it because an ordered life says to me that it's flowing, it's alive, it's flexible, it can change. I can make an order of a list on an Excel spreadsheet, and with the press of a button, I can sort that, make it go forwards and backwards and sideways if I want. All the things are still there. They just change their order. So when we go back to some of these things that we've already learned, and I love that the Queen Mom had put these things down as foundations that we are now being able to build upon. When we respect time, when it is something that we cherish as much as the air that we breathe or our possessions, when we understand it is a force and that we have to work with it, and when we work with it, we are more energized by it. We also have to understand that we have commitments and we have to be true to our commitments. We have to be women of our word. Our word must be deed. And then we have to know how to prioritize. First, prioritizing our commitments, prioritizing the time that we're spending. Those things working together will automatically create a very ordered life. And a very ordered life has priorities, it has commitments, it has time frames, and it's flexible. She rises when it is still night. There is something really special about while it is still night. There are secret powers in the early hours of the morning. It's an energy source that begs to be found and yet so often ignored. So often we sleep through it. But it is when the day is fresh and new and nothing, absolutely nothing, is impossible. The prayer that I leave with you this week is this: Creator of time and space, I ask that you teach us the importance of order within our own lives. Help us to be flexible, to rearrange our schedule when needed. Guide us as we prioritize our commitments, and nudge us when we begin to waste the precious gift of time. Teach us to respect it. Be with us in the middle of the night when all of our fears and worries take hold. Keep us calm. Meet us in those dark hours and bring us peace. Thank you for the order that you have designed within our world. Thank you for joining me for this 7th lesson. We've added another garment to Moxy's wardrobe, and this one is soft and gentle and flows gracefully throughout the day. We are all on our way of becoming women clothed in strength and dignity, and who can laugh without fear of the future. If you haven't already contacted me, please do so. I want to hear about you, your Moxy journey, and what brought you to our lesson. You can connect with me through my blog at jeanniegb.com or email me directly at moxy@asilverthread. I can't wait for Lesson 8.